baby discussion. Not baby is in small, like, never mind.
You're all we need, Ian.
You really are
Aww.
turning into Ted Lasso.
Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. This is the, I assume most people are watching this in replay. Whoever's watching this at all. So, hi, how you doing? Hi. It's good to see you. You look good. Well, today we're talking about War Stories, which is well, I think it's a delightful episode. But this is the patron hangout discussion from the $5 and up tier over on patreon.com/ I think it's Passion of the Nerd, but the link should be down in the description if you want to join us for the discussions in the future. We're going to wrap up Firefly in the next 4 with the movie, and then we may do a Dr. Horrible break, and then we're going to go on to Buffy Season 6, Angel Season 3. I'm terrified when we do the one after that. But that's a couple of years off at the rate that we're going. Season 7, Season 4. Good gravy. We're going to have to figure out something. But anyway, Sara, did I leave anything out? Oh, no, this is a non-spoiler discussion. Please, Jack is our Firefly canary in the coal mine on this one, which has been fun to see. So please, everything before this episode is fair game up to this episode. But yeah, other than that, please avoid spoilers. And I think that's everything. Right.
Right.
Right, mate. Right,
So
mate.
it's been
Right.
with only 6 of us in here today. I was thinking we'd just do a little bit more of the open table discussion, and my head is blocking Tom's face, so I'm gonna scoot myself over a bit here. There we go. Josh is the king of showing up 20 minutes after we've started, though, so we may switch into a more of a one-on-one discussion, but we'll see. So this is War Stories. Who wants to start us out? Where does this episode fall for you in the? I think it was during this rewatch that I experienced my first moment that is inevitable in every Firefly rewatch. That first moment of Firefly grief, when you start to go, "Oh, we only have a couple episodes left."
Yeah.
But Tom, you missed you at the last discussion. Tell me a little bit about Ariel. This one, you watched them as they aired out of order too, so I don't have any idea where in the order you saw this one.
I'm assuming I think the only ones that were out of order, as I recall, were the Train Job, which was first instead of second, and Serenity, which was last instead of first.
Well, and then what's the one with Jubal early? That one didn't even air, right?
Out of gas.
Or no, not out of gas.
No, not out of gas.
No.
God, it's the other one.
Objects in Space.
Objects in
thank
Space.
you.
I get the two of them confused too. They both have the O.
Yeah. But,
which is funny because I love Out of Gas like ridiculous amounts, and Objects in Space was a little too Joss existential for me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
but yeah.
Go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I honestly I don't remember what the order I watched them in, because I've watched them so many times on DVD in order that my memory of the order is kind of.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a tough question because, at this point. Well, the other thing too is that the show is, it has sort of punctuating moments where people get kicked into engines, but we never got a chance to have the Body or a Becoming Part 2 or even a prophecy girl, really. One of
Yeah.
those sort of set piece moments where when I think it's interesting when I kind of reflect on Firefly the show as a whole, I think of all of the humorous bits and bobs. The movie has what the movie has, but other than that,
Yeah. Yeah.
which we've sort of talked about, but yeah, Lady Eternal, where does this episode kind of land for you, especially with the violence and the darkness of it?
Honestly, this episode is one of my favorites in spite of all the violence. And almost in a weird way, almost because of it.
Interesting.
I don't usually go for violence as, I kind of am like, oh, okay, fine, we're doing this thing now. But, the number of times that I have fast forwarded through scenes on rewatching other series because I'm like, oh, okay, you're doing the thing now. Okay, yes. Masterful direction. Can we have a discussion, please? With this, the violence is the backdrop of the discussion that absolutely fascinates me.
What's the discussion?
The character interplay between Wash and Mal after Niska acquires them. It is backdropped entirely by the violence that is being done to them. And the fact that Mal, as a torture resistance device, is able to focus.
It's so good.
Able to focus himself and keep Wash's focus somehow, as a result. It's incredible. I mean, there's a part of me where I'm actually kind of sitting there like Niska is just smiling the entire time because look at these two. Look at what they're doing. Who does this? And the banter between them is actually, for me, so iconic. I actually have patterned banter I've done in my own stories that I've written after it.
Yeah.
I there's something about the way that not just that Mal is in that scene, although it sets the stage for something else that Jack's going to see later, and I can't wait to see it. But just the way it sets the stage, even in this episode, for Mal just absolutely going to town on Niska and Victor, and he's as wounded as he is, he's still going, and nothing is stopping him. And but Wash also, somewhere in there, Wash is able to focus on what Mal is saying instead of getting lost.
You're talking about during the torture sequence, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it is a really wonderful example of what makes Mutant Enemy feel special, which is to take something that in other circumstances might be just what it is, which is a torture sequence, and to not go any deeper than that, but to use it as the set piece for character development, character interplay, and all of that. It feels both elevating, and it also feels like the thing that Mutant Enemy content gets criticized for, which is people don't talk that way. When they're being tortured, they don't have this cute, comical. I don't care about this, but this was a point of contention that we had with our dear Mrs. Reynolds, which is that it becomes its own genre, and it's certainly not a realistic genre, but it's this. it's such a tired cliche to use the Shakespearean comparison, but no one speaks in iambic pentameter in actual life, but no one levies that criticism against Shakespeare's content. Perhaps they did in the day. I'm not enough of a literary historian, so that would have been really funny. The London Gazette says the pretentious Shakespeare throws another dud, or whatever it may have been. But
Well,
it definitely just becomes something else. It becomes whatever the thing it is that we all that is the reason I think we all join this discussion and talk about these things. But it's really cool. We having just watched Mad Max Fury Road. There's a similar thing there, which what George Miller does in that of just the movie on its surface is a chase scene. Yeah, Furiosa has stolen the warlord's wives and he wants them back. But there's such a level of design on top of it that you have literal war drums on the back of a truck and a blind man playing a flame-throwing guitar.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a comparison, there's a old Charlie Sheen, Christy Swanson movie literally called The Chase, and all it is a car chase where he's taken her hostage, and it's the two of them in the car, and it's this big long, the whole movie's one long chase scene. That movie is barely a cult movie anymore, and Fury Road is Fury Road.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sara.
So, it's really important, I think, that she didn't steal the wives because they are not an object to be stolen.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, which is part of the entire theme. Yeah, helping them escape.
Yes, she is their escort. They stole themselves.
Yeah, it's such an interesting film, and I can't believe that he was in his 70s making that movie. There's there creatively, I think there's a fear of getting started too late in life, and Norman MacLean is one of my favorites that gets cited as an example of, Norman MacLean wrote A River Runs Through It, I think in his 80s or in his 70s, but George Miller making Mad Max Fury Road in his 70s is insane to me.
Especially as that is like one of the most feminist films of the last decade, and it was made by an old white man. Which it's possible to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It is possible for people to acknowledge their privilege and use their privilege for good.
Yeah.
Yes, it genuinely is. Yeah. I do you mind if I'm the dissenting opinion?
Sure. Yeah.
Episode? Okay.
No, I never expect that something's going to go over great with every one of us, for sure.
I think it's very well made, but Wash's stupid, whiny shit and not about being left out annoys me.
I actually, as much as I love this episode, completely agree. I feel like his husbandly jealousy, whatever the hell you want to call it, comes out of no place simply to fuel the plot of this episode.
Yeah, the man in this episode is not worthy of Zoe. He is a child.
Yeah, and there's a big difference between...
That is not how Wash is usually written.
Exactly. There's a big difference between being the Joker of the show, who on the surface of it that easily decays into childishness, as we see with Xander sometimes as well. But that I think there's a balance, and with Wash, that balance has been well struck until this episode.
Yeah, he has a, innocent childishness that is good, but in this he is, being it like I don't like that this is an episode and that we've got the men and women can't be friends assumption going in here somewhere, which thankfully the episode is countering, but I think we spend way too much time with Wash being a whiny baby.
Well, and it kind of digs at the theme of what you're talking about. The scene where they're blindfolded and he Wash snap. I mean, Alan Tudyk is a comedic genius. He's wonderful, of course. But the scene where they're blindfolded and Alan Tudyk says, "She's my wife. They're supposed to honor and obey." And Mal says, "Oh, she obeys." And
Yeah,
he's
have you met Zoe?
right, and he goes, "Well, no, but that's just the
Well,
thing.
no.
She obeys you." And then Mal tries to explain it. They're tickling at deeper thematic ideas. It reminds me a little bit of Shindig, the way there you're going top shelf with slavery, but the way it sort of like poked at those ideas, but then sort of went nah and backed off and was sort of more cute and entertaining. It never goes back and kind of resolves or distills. I don't know what his arc is in this episode. He seems to come out of the torture sequence with a respect for Mal saving his butt that he didn't have before, which is a tangent to the masculine husbandly themes that they're playing with before they get into that. So it seems like a cheat. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, like I get him feeling left out and wanting a bond with Mal. I think there's that, but it's being conflated with this sort of like with this jealousy that I think is entirely misplaced and just boring.
I don't disagree.
Like I don't see why we haven't had any indication before that he would be jealous, and bringing in and the suggestion that there's like, and why would anybody think Mal and Zoe would be in any way romantic or anything? Like why is that in there?
It's actually refreshing, the sexlessness of their relationship in the show. I always appreciate. It's something that we were watching. I said to Jack when I hate to keep coming back. I've got a Fury Road brain. I apologize, but we were watching Fury Road.
It is so good.
There are a couple of moments where you think there's some connection or intimacy between Max and Furiosa, and they don't go there. It just is a working relationship where they have really strong chemistry as supporting each other through the whole thing. Mostly him like giving up to her, which I love. Giving up the sniper rifle in that scene is really wonderful. But it feels so refreshing
because
of
episodes about that film, and I'll try and send you the link. That just really.
And that's one of the things I love about Mal and Zoe's relationship, but it's so constructed as this deeply loving, sexless thing that, again, it undermines this episode using jealousy as a motivation. Would you?
Yeah, and like I am amused by the scene at the end, but
they
had another way to get there.
It's another one of those like joke, and the jokes are great because they're hilarious. But it sort of feels like smoke and mirrors at some point. Tom, go ahead. Let me give you a chance.
Well, I was going to say that the only time they actually use any suggestion of sexual intimacy or whatever between Mal and Zoe is during the torture scene where Mal's just trying to piss Wash off so he'll stay focused and stay through the torture. He's never actually serious about it.
I remember the first time, this is a tangent, but I remember the first time seeing the episode that I was strangely hurt, but now I love it. But when when Niska says, "Oh, so you're going to have to choose him," and so it's such a brilliant subversive beat. But I
Yeah.
remember the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, she didn't even think about saving Mal. Now you watch it and you just go, no, she knows Mal can survive. And that's her husband, or however, whatever. What is? How does that beat land for everyone? I suppose is what I'm throwing out. Like, why does she make that decision?
I love it. I absolutely, like you. Like the first time you watch it, you're honestly, because of all the back and forth and with how loyal Zoe is to Mal as opposed to how much she loves Wash. The first time you watch it, there's an honest to God moment before they reveal the cut of who's she pointing at. Is she pointing at Mal because once they free him, they can kick the crap out of everybody and go and get Wash loose?
Right.
Or is she pointing at Wash because he's her husband and she wants to get him the hell out of here and they'll come back for Mal later? And it's I love that moment because it is a what is she going to decide, but not in a love triangle choosing between them. It's who is she picking for this fight?
Well, yeah, the calculus of that decision, which she processes instantly, is really fascinating to me. And I was just wondering, and I love that it's not explained, that they don't revisit that moment. You can read it as Wash wasn't going to make it. You could read it as she, loves him in a way that is more something than the way she feels about Mal, like whatever. But the calculus of that decision is really interesting to me.
Did anybody else think that there was a possibility that she'd already just thought Niska was going to pull that crap on her and had already decided before she walked in?
That's after watching rewatches and such. That's my personal feeling, is that this is something she's calculated as either she at least thought of the possibility that he would pull this crap, and so I gotta get Wash out of there.
I don't think she walks into any. I don't think she walks into any room without thinking about the scenarios.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, she's one of those characters that's just that kind of.
If she knows what any kind of situation that's happening, she's already calculated it. Yeah.
Harris, I just want to give you a chance to speak. Also, I want to comment and acknowledge on that amazing background you have behind you, which I didn't even notice before. Really wonderful. But
thank you. That was taken about 10 hours ago. So
oh wow.
You're at the con.
Yeah, so it's between the two days of Comic-Con Northeast England. So I was at the first day for me yesterday, and then in about 8 hours time I'll be going for the second day. So got the photo.
Well, that is an amazing photograph, and I think you look like you belong in that shot. It looks so good.
Thank you. I did put a Discord just as a quick tangent because I'm going to go sit into the in the Q&A with these three in later on today. I don't have any particular questions I was going to attempt to ask, so if anyone has any, and then when I put it into the Discord message, I put into the server, and if I have a chance to ask a question, I'll ask it. Just something to throw out there. It's interesting that you said that the first time you watched the episode, you felt that there should be a bit more of a kind of hesitation on Zoe's part, because I guess just to advance forward to my regular segment of Harris reads from the big book he bought ages ago thing, that's actually the sentiment. So that segue.
Harris's big book of Firefly. I love it.
He brings receipts.
Exactly. It's some of the sentiment that the writer of the episode had. So when Cheryl Kane and Whedon were pitching the idea, it originated around that one conflict about who Zoe would choose, and Cheryl Kane would actually felt that Zoe would initially choose Mal. It was Whedon who came back to say that she would choose Wash because Mal would be able to save himself, and that Zoe wouldn't be able to trust Wash to survive that long.
Would be able to endure.
Yeah. So that's actually where. So even the writer of the episode initially had that kind of same hesitation that you had the first time you watched it. But to me, it made sense. I think I echo everyone else in the room's kind of sentiment about it.
Well, the thing that's fascinating about the decision either way is that either way, whatever she picked, there would be an emotional reaction. If she had left Wash there, when she left Mel there, I kind of went, oh, on my first watch through. But I think you'd have a similar feeling if she left Wash there by himself of, uh-oh, how is he going to survive and so forth. It's just so brilliantly played that she steals Niska's moment of lording the decision over her. There's no joy of being able to torture her with the decision. Go ahead, Harrison.
I also think that's a great power move, but I also agree with what Cindy's written in the chat. My reading of the scene is that potentially also is what provoked Niska in then cutting off, doing the whole thing about, oh no, you paid too much. I figure my reading is that if one of two things happened, if she didn't do that power move, and if Wash didn't be like, no way, 20 away from Mal, then Niska wouldn't have done the ear thing.
That's interesting. I've never considered that the ear slice was provoked as a result of not giving him the satisfaction from the decision. I like that reading.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's properly grounded. The other, there might be a part of me too, just getting back to what Sara was talking about with the Wash writing in this one. The other part of it might be is that Wash is a little annoying in this episode, and so her picking him over Mal may have hit me on that level. But I just want to give Jen, I know you're not on video. I just want to give you a chance to weigh in if there's anything you wanted to jump in on these topics one way or another.
Yeah, I agree with both points. I agree that the ear was probably a side effect of that because it makes sense for where the character is. But I also agree that she couldn't have chose anyone else at that point. A, Wash wouldn't have survived any longer. And B, if she chooses Mel, then I don't think she could live with herself not choosing her husband, like it or not.
Okay.
I think what I don't like about this episode is the fact that there is 3 million reasons why to get Zoe on to leave Zoe behind and have a Wash and Mel trip. I do not like this jealousy. There's a comment that happens earlier on. We've been fighting. We have not seen that in this show. We've seen a loving couple, and this episode we've been yet another fight. That has not been shown in the show, so that comes out of nowheres.
Yeah, the only fight they have, Jen, isn't it the only fight that I can remember them having in the show is during Our Mrs. Reynolds, isn't it? When Zoe starts taking a little exception to how funny Wash finds the whole thing.
Well, the other thing that I was thinking, someone mentioned Serenity, and I couldn't remember anything in Serenity because I remember the quad bike when he walking out and he says something to her in Mandarin. But I do remember there's a line where he says, "Don't forget to call him sir. He likes it when you do that." So there's hints of it, but that could just be normal Xander-esque snipiness that doesn't seem specifically.
Especially since there's hints that they're just recently married, so there's still that tension of finding everyone's places.
And in Ariel, Wash was fighting to be at her bedside, and Mal didn't let him. One would think that and Mal didn't spend his entire time at Zoe's bedside either. So there's just a lot
out
of
of gas.
There's
out of gas.
Out of gas, not Ariel. Excuse me. There's a lot of stuff that actively undermines the whole idea here, and yet, I mean, in classic just make me feel things fashion, I still love this episode. As soon as Mal is saying he's going to sleep with Zoe real nice just to keep Wash coherent and fighting and angry to so that he doesn't give up. I have that moment of just all right.
Well, I love the
I'm
end.
so easy that way.
I love the end. The whole awkward fake
Oh
out
God,
kiss.
it's so good. Yeah, that bit is so wonderful.
Yeah.
That's just darn unsettling.
Yeah, like we said in the rewatch, to take two actors with so much charisma and so much chemistry. It was like we were talking about a few of these ago. To bad acting in anything is tough to do well. You know, having an actor play a bad actor in something is a challenge to pull off successfully. It's like having an actor play drunk. There are tells to that kind of thing. Having two actors that are so charismatic and have such good chemistry together play bad chemistry is so fun. That sequence is just wonderful.
Yeah, it's a good bit. It's good to see married couples having conflict that isn't like relationship destroying conflict, like not being perfect. We don't need to see them be perfect.
No.
But why do we have to go to like triangle shit? I'm jealous. Like
I know. I honestly liked
sing
a
little
song. Bit of how it started before it actually kind of descends into in the torture scene, that Wash has suddenly decided that the whole difficulty here is that Zoe and Mal never slept together and they need to get it out of their system so that she can be, you know, a little more balanced in her relationship between the two of them. Back when it started at the beginning of the episode, where it is literally about that he resents how much backstory she has with Mal, and
that's
how
different. That is more interesting.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, it's still jealousy, but it's still
it goes to the love it goes to the sex, and not even love triangle. It goes to the sex triangle thing, and I'm like, guys, come on.
It would be more interesting if he is jealous of, like, if he wants a relationship with his captain that is different from his wife. Like, if he's frustrated by the communication having to go through her and wants to build a relationship with Mal, that would be a more interesting like conflict than you would.
And the seeds of it were there with him saying, you know, I told you my idea. What did you think? And, you know, like her fobbing him off, telling it to Mal, and then Mal coming in later and giving him the real opinion. Like that would have been fodder for that idea that he wants a direct relationship with Mal that doesn't have to go through Zoe because of Mal and Zoe's backstory. That Zoe's protecting Wash through her backstory with Mal from potentially Mal not wanting to hear Wash and shooting him down and just being like, you're the pilot, just be the pilot, you know? That would be a lot more interesting than a sex triangle.
Yeah. Like there's possibilities to have him be kind of jealous and whatever, but also like there isn't enough of a accountability at the end for him having behaved like a whiny baby.
Yeah, that I agree with. They don't pay it off to the degree. It switches to a you know, a speed style. Actually, no. The classic example to me is Passengers. I don't know if I'm the only one who has seen Passengers. I love Passengers. It is broken and awful in such an interesting way, and there's so much potential before it just.
That is fair.
It is a fascinating. How do you fix this puzzle other than, and you're not allowed to cheat and say it doesn't exist, Sara. Just remove it. Like,
make it a horror story.
Yes.
Because it is.
Yeah. So the I don't want to go too deep into Passengers because it's a different thing. But the way Passengers comes up with this deeply moral dilemma between Chris Pratt and
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence. Thank you. And then
oh God, that's that movie.
that's
I had
that
blocked
movie.
I had blocked out the apparently the association of the title with the story because
Oh.
oh my.
I
agree
love
with
it.
Sara. It's a horror movie.
It's a horror movie.
Yes. But it's played like this charming, fun, rompy science fiction film. And there's a reveal in the middle of the movie that I'm not going to spoil that creates an incredible moral problem that the movie solves by just putting the characters in jeopardy and having them bond with each other through action and survival. Oh my God, we almost died. I forgive you for all the horrible things that have happened up to this point. And, you know, to a lesser degree, it seems like War Stories raises these interesting, or not necessarily interesting, but does raise a whole bunch of thematic questions about the trio of characters and then solves them by putting everyone in jeopardy and ending with an action sequence. Buttoned up with a little bit of comedy.
I think the question
kind
is
of like what they. So that was kind of what they did in. Kind of like what they did in Dead Man's Party.
Yes.
Everybody's fighting, and
oh
then
my God,
everybody's arguing, and then the zombies come in, and they finish the fight and say, "Okay, that was great. Oh yeah, you were wonderful. Okay,
Yeah.
And nobody has to be accountable for the garbage way that they treated Buffy in that episode.
Yeah.
Let alone Buffy ever having to. Buffy is almost having to be over accountable for the fact that she's still so reactionary emotionally, but at the same time she's not owning up to it for the right reasons.
Yeah, it is. I'm not sure what the name of that trope is, but it's look over here, you know, kind of solving through action with all of the question. Dead Man's Party is a very egregious version of that whole thing. I do think that Buffy has some themes of isolation and violence that actually kind of work. You know, in that part of Buffy's life is she is alone. You know, the Dead Man's Party. There's a straight line from Dead Man's Party to season 6 of Buffy and her sense of isolation and death is your gift and all of that. But as an individual episode, it feels very unsatisfying, and I do think War Stories is buttoned up in a much better way with the comedy and the bow. That is a shiny package to the problem, but it's but yeah, Dead Man's Party is a wonderful example of that. But go ahead, Sara.
I think the question we have to ask is there are certain underlying assumptions being built about the world, and or being accepted uncritically, and what's like what is being accepted uncritically or built into this world about relationships between men and women. That it's okay for men to behave like a whiny baby if he gets tortured after it, so we're not going to hold him accountable, or is it like you know, jealousy is normal, and friendships, non-sexual relationships between men and women are unusual and need to be accounted for, which I hope I hope we've moved on from that even in the last 20 years.
I think the episode thinks that it is invalidating that or that it is contradicting that conclusion, but it does so without completing an arc for Wash. So
yeah, and
wait.
And it accepts the premise.
When has it not been okay for men to act like whiny babies?
You're looking for
come
the
on.
line, Tom?
What's wrong with acting like a whiny baby? What's wrong?
I got nothing, buddy.
I honestly think, Sara, that the fact that she doesn't address it in the episode I can hand wave in that it would be hard for me to want to have that discussion with my husband immediately after he's been tortured and we've had to go through this whole thing with rescue. I mean,
Well,
there would be a couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's
the problem is it doesn't get
versus
addressed
story.
later because we don't have time because the series got cut off.
Yeah, this is life versus story. Like
Right.
in life, you wouldn't have the conversation while he's recovering from torture. In story, you have to finish the story beat.
Yeah.
I wonder if
Well,
in their mind they.
Well,
I
we're on
wonder
the
if-
subject.
Oh, sorry. Go
Sorry.
ahead, Jen.
Can I throw out
Yeah.
that how long does it take for Buffy to address the fact that Angel got his soul back before she sent him to hell? And that Xander lied? Come on. We're going to put it out for Firefly. You gotta put it out for Buffy.
But that's a major character point for Buffy. It should have been for Xander. But the fact that yes, it takes time for it to come out about but they do a whole episode discussing that. So like
no, they don't. They have to hand wave because they're busy dealing with Anya. It basically 10 seconds and then they hand wave it. So no, they don't because they're busy dealing with Anya.
This is a very old Jack fight that
it's one line. They don't deal with it at all. It's one line.
I think what you're thinking of with the whole episode, Sara, and I agree with you. The whole episode where Buffy herself deals with the fact that Angel had his soul back. Yeah, she deals with it herself in a whole episode. The lie never gets addressed except for one throwaway line.
Yeah, we have the whole thing about Giles lying and creating a thing in order to get her to say the words out loud. Like,
yeah, you're thinking in Faith, Hope, and Trick, yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Well, I think the difference there in terms of
that's addressing something different.
Hang on, I think the difference there in terms of letting story beats hang is Buffy knew that it was going to get another season, and maybe at this point, I don't read in this bit in Firefly them thinking, oh, this will become a driving bit for Zoe and Wash later on. It does feel complete in and of itself, but just in sort of an unsatisfying kind of way. I don't know if that's my read there. But again, not all of it. I just want to give the muted a chance to weigh in. Harris, if you would just wanted to, or at least show us your kitty's business. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I realize it can be a challenge to get a word in the round table, so I just wanted to make sure you didn't have something you wanted to add to the discussion.
Now you put me on the spot.
No.
Blank. No, I agree with you. I think just the pacing of the episode made it feel to me that it was not going to be a conflict that would come back in any kind of meaningful way. So I agree with yourself and Zara that it felt very self-contained, and the fact that it wasn't dealt with at the end of the episode means that we weren't going to deal with it ever. Regardless of how Firefly turns out.
There's a difference between seeding future plots versus something got missed. And to me, Wash's conduct feels like it's missed in this one versus it's something that is seeding a future plot.
I think it's relying on the idea that I think it's letting people do the heavy lifting of that emotion I was talking about of, she's not calling him out on that right now because he did just get tortured. She's going to wait a couple of days and then she's going to deal with him. But then they never, because the story is truncated, it never even has a chance to get referenced again.
It's interesting. I wonder if there was a missing scene or two here. Harris, let me give Harris a chance to follow up, and then Sara.
My reading, and I think the consensus is from the round table, is this wasn't the correct way to do it. But my reading is I think the intent was Wash being humbled by his experiences. He comes out of the torture very, tail between the legs is his kind of, he's dropped the case now because he's realized he's wrong and that's his accountability. Clearly, that's not the correct execution because we're all disagreeing with how it's turned out, but that seems to be from my opinion, that seems to be the creator intent. That was his.
I think that's spot on. I think the sequence where Zoe rescues him and everything he says in that is supposed to be closure for all of the stuff that was set up to that point. It just doesn't quite wrap it up. Go ahead, Sarah.
I think, I don't think it's a matter of needing her to call him on it. I think it's a matter of needing him to go, I'm sorry I was a dick.
I was a butt.
That doesn't take very long.
Yeah.
No.
Sorry doesn't cost anything.
But meanwhile, I have a lot of, you talk about emotional beats from this episode. That moment when she walks in, before anybody says anything, she walks in and he's just reflexively, no, run.
Yeah.
Please just rip my heart out, please.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like we've unexpectedly gone deeper on some of the frustrations with this episode than I thought we were going to, and I'll just say up front, when this is all said and done, still love this episode. This one still a joy for me because again, you make me feel all the things, and all right, that's fine. I mean, I'm sure there's a limit. I'm sure there's a threshold when it comes to theme, plot, and suspension of disbelief, but this one doesn't hit it for me. That's for sure. And that's the fun. Even something as well. Let's not go back to Passengers. But go ahead, Tom.
One of the things, one of the little things I love about this episode is the follow up from Ariel. You know, it's Jane being so generous with his cut that it's pretty weird. Surprises me. You know, he's bought everybody these apples, and why does Jane bought everybody apples? You know, he's got
the other thing too is the scene where Zoe and Wash are about to go off on their own. Jane standing there and saying that's suicide is him taking an interest in a way that even though he's sort of saying don't do this, or he's not really saying that, he's being Jane critical, taking an interest to that degree again feels like to me growth for his character at this point. And
a little bit of growth.
Well, everything with Jane, it's just a little of a growth.
Increments, you know.
A little bit.
After like 5 seasons, there would have been some significant growth there.
Yeah, Jane's growth is really more erosion. It's like erosion of a canyon over a long period of time. The way that goes.
Because what was it? What the chain of command reference.
Yeah.
You know, it's the chain I beat you with until you realize I'm in command.
Yeah.
I mean, that we've gone from that to this instead of Jane sitting back saying, well, if Zoe and Wash and Mal are all dead, I can just hire a new pilot and then I'm captain.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And him sort of, it's rotten suicide, you know, having the bit of even just to stand there and say that. And I which leads to just wanting to highlight one of my favorite lines in the entire show, which is, doesn't the Bible say things about killing? Oh, very specific things. It is, however, fuzzy on the topic of kneecaps.
Kneecaps. Oh my God. That right there. Every time I hear that, it calls me back to, you know, Wesley in Bad Girls when Balthazar threatens to rip out their kneecaps.
But I like my kneecaps.
It isn't kill them. It's a trade. Intriguing. No, wait.
No.
Boring. Pull out his kneecaps.
I also like this. I also like the second appearance of a very significant character, named character, Vera,
Oh
Yes.
yes.
Because Jane's, as everybody's going there, then you hear a click click, and everyone looks up, and there's Jane standing there with Vera. It's like,
Yeah, he cares.
Ready to
beautiful
go.
Vera again.
But the
Yeah.
Ready to
subject
go.
of Jane, there's another. I fucking hate the I'll be in my bunk. I know it's funny,
Sure.
but we get textual queerness, but then we get so extreme male gaze. So
Yeah.
completely disgustingly unnecessary male gaze about it.
It's
I
definitely
hate it.
one of the most memed bits in the whole series, and it definitely reminds me of sometimes I think about two women doing a spell, and then I do a spell
Which
with
I also
myself.
hate.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
why
And
are we framing framing sapphicness around through men's eyes? Let's not, because that's creepy, disgusting, and don't.
especially when that scene between Inara and the counselor, where they're actually in her shuttle together, is such an encapsulated little moment of zen
It's really I love
compared
the bit.
to
Yeah.
everything else that's going on in the episode. And it's not that I have always seen that as shot very anti-male gaze. Even the way that Inara is framed when they're going in for the kiss is not, they're both still, largely clothed. The counselor, all you're seeing is her back. Nothing's prurient. There's just intimacy. And I saw that when I saw that was just such a lovely moment to me. And then I rolled my eyes as hard as Inara did at the I'll be in my bunk.
Yeah, like they've textually framed everything about this thing, about her being with a woman, as being other people looking at it. And I like Kaylee looking at it because it does kind of like she's respectful. She's more respectful than the others, but although she really shouldn't be, but there's a sense already that she likes Inara. It's clear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a little bisexual awakening going on there.
Yeah, and that is interesting, but the whole thing has been shaped around Mal's needing to control her relationships with her clients again, but he's okay with it
Yeah.
with her, it's just it's all women, and women can only exist when it's for the male gaze, and please fuck off, Joss Whedon.
I honestly, my head goes to if you think about it critically for a moment, what if Mal was pulling that, nobody comes on my boat that I don't meet, bro, you're going off on a little adventure of your own for smuggling and crime. If Inara had gone and picked up the counselor in her shuttle, brought her back and docked, you would have never known they were there. So, it's Inara's only letting you have this little power play because this is the way the counselor is saying she wants to come to meet with Inara, not the way that Inara could be doing this if she had her own control. So it's if Inara really didn't, if Inara really was going to control that situation, Mal wouldn't even know what was going on because he doesn't have to. It's her shuttle.
Yeah, but the writers have to make it about him because we have to have more jealous, whiny baby boys.
I mean, the underlying bit is that even though I think it seems like more of a thing that Jane would say than actually no, Xander would probably say something like that. But within the context of the dream world of Restless, for the camera to pan away from Willow's perspective in that particular sequence feels even more egregious in the way it breaks that bit of story. There's still a decision to write the joke and put it in there regardless of its consistency in the universe.
Yeah, and Joss admitting that he knew it didn't fit and wrote it anyway because he wanted it.
Can't lay off a masturbation joke.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Well,
and it's totally in Jane's character to say that.
sure.
There's just no reason at all why we have to look at him doing it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Someone
No,
needs
I
to
get
sit
it.
Joss down and explain to him that death and masturbation jokes are not the only way to advance the narrative.
No, because that would mean allowing him to write more, which we shouldn't do because he's a jackass and he shouldn't be producing anything with anyone.
Well, let's see if we can steer away from the Joss route specifically, because that way lies madness after what's been happening. But I just want to go around and make sure that everyone has had a chance to speak who wants to, including Sir Jack, who has been quiet during this entire discussion.
We've long moved on from the stuff I had comments on, so I don't know how to.
Let's
Bring
go
it back, Jack.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
yeah.
Bring it
I
back.
think he's begging for you to bring it back to get
I
off.
would
me.
love to end on a more positive note.
Well, I wanted to comment on the whole Zoe choosing Wash thing.
Sure.
As a newbie to the show, so I've seen the episode.
The calculus of the decision.
Yeah, I've seen the episode twice now. The rewatch didn't really count because we just talk over it and just vaguely pay attention. But the first time I saw it, I didn't have a problem with it at all. It just made perfect sense to me because that's her husband. I don't know. I just think that that's just a natural choice to make. I don't know, but I think you could make the argument though that if she had chosen Mal, it would have been easier to mount a rescue mission because Mal is so much more skilled and he's a soldier. So
yeah. It is interesting. The thing I love about it though is that either pick creates tension. And I love too that they didn't. The best, which shows that the best part about the moment is just her not allowing Niska the lord the decision over her.
But I didn't really because you said the first time you saw it you're like, oh, what about Mal? I didn't think about that until you said it. And I thought, oh yeah, I guess what about Mal? It just made so much sense to me that she picked her husband. It just
Well,
it's a no-brainer to me. I don't know.
For me personally, I think that Mal and Zoe have the more interesting relationship.
Yeah.
The him being a sergeant in the army and her sort of continuing to follow and support him. I don't know. It's difficult to describe.
And they met first, and they probably had like a. I don't know, going to war with someone, I think you develop a very deep bond.
Yeah, I would have loved to have come to understand. I mean, the show is incredibly Mal-centric, both metaphorically and in the stories that it tells. And I would have loved to have more Zoe backstories. To greater understand her motivations, her character, there's definitely commitment. There's a sense of commitment to Mal and this and the journey that he's on, and to understand why romantic would be easy, right? And because they deliberately remove that, which I love. Understanding the complexity of it more through more backstories would have been really great.
Would it have been season 2 or season 3 that we got more Zoe's
I think that there's an implication in this episode by the way that she reacts when Wash is saying what he's saying in the shuttle. There's an implication that the reason that she has the relationship to Mal that she has is because he did something like that for her. So maybe not necessarily that exact like torture situation, but something on that level where he, despite being deeply and grievously wounded, is pushing through all of that for her and bringing her along and getting her out of something. And I think there's an implication that there's a parallel there.
Yeah.
But they never they don't make that explicit in the episode. she doesn't say, I know, he did that for me too. Which again, as Sara said previously,
that's interesting.
It wouldn't take long for them to say that. It
Yeah.
would take a
And honestly, going the flashback route would have been less interesting than just having them have more organic moments of sort of vulnerability between the two of them. And when I say vulnerability, I don't specifically mean romantic vulnerability, but just more moments of, you know, sort of Zoe says, "You remember this area?" And he says, "Oh yeah, you were amazing," or whatever, however it would have gone. I really would have loved to see more facets of that relationship play out over time.
I'm actually I'm also hoping, and don't tell me obviously, but I hope we get a Zoe centric episode, because I feel like she's had less of the spotlight than anyone really, except for maybe Book, I guess.
Book's backstory episode is amazing.
Okay, cool. If I may, I also wanted to comment on the torture scene, because the thing that I love about it the most is there's so much going on in it. It's humorous. It's also very visceral. Like it's pretty full on. Like it's not Hostel, it's not Saw, but it's still for a PG TV show, it's pretty full on.
Prime time,
yeah, but it's also very sentimental, and those are tones that clash. And so to be able to mix them in a way that feels so sort of I don't know, seamless, I guess, it's just really impressive that all of those tones exist in that sequence, but they don't feel like they clash, and it just blends really, really well.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously they had dark intent for where the show would have gone, and I'm happy that some plots got avoided, but there are hints of, you know, what might they have done with that when their wheelhouse is what it is, which is sort of contrast with comedy. Go ahead, Sara.
Yeah.
So I know I'm being the killjoy. Maybe I've just been called a woke scold so many times this week that I'm but
don't read the comments.
But yeah, sometimes you have to moderate the comments. So the thing about Zoe's character, and I'm not the ideal person to bring this up, but there isn't anybody here to really go into it, but it is a problem with strong female Black characters being written without space for vulnerability. This is a known trope. You know, we talk about doing the strong female character, and particularly with Black women, they're often expected to be strong, with no room for softness and, you know, vulnerability and all that. And I think, like, she does bring some of that in, some softness into her performance, but they do write her as bulletproof, and that's adding to a trope that I don't think the writers were aware of, because once again, we have a room full of writers.
I agree, but
of experience.
I also love, though, that she's a badass. Like I really enjoy that. I see what you're saying, and I don't disagree. And I'm not trying to counter you, but I still just love that she's really tough. I just think it's.
I love that she's a badass, but she's a badass who deserved more space to be also a human.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, it's because our world expects Black women to be bulletproof and be the strong character and the strong person all the time, that it's like Lani talks about, it's not one raindrop doesn't get you wet, but a rainstorm.
Yeah, it's sort of we can have individual appreciation for Zoe and Gina Torres's performance while still acknowledging that there is a broader trend here that it is contributing to and relates to, for sure. Well, I either need to take a break or I need to wrap up. So
we can take a break.
Okay, let me take a 5-minute break then. I will be right back with you.
Sara, can I counter you? Not really counter. I will say that her character to me reads a lot like Xena in early seasons of Xena, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like that. So what I never really thought about it in the other context. But when I was watching her character, at least to me, read very much like Xena's character, where you had like other characters like Gabrielle was a feminine compared to Xena's masculine. Uh, and you have Inara and even Kaylee to be more feminine on the ship for the females.
This is why you and I aren't supposed to be the experts on black female characters, because unless we've read the background, we're going to come in with an experience where we don't see where the issues are. So yeah, it's cool that she's like Xena. It's just that.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
I
said I wasn't trying to counter. I was just trying to like, considering Xena was, it's a contemporary of the time. It's a few years, ends at a few years earlier, but it's still relevant for that when Firefly was made.
And yeah, it's because it's like, it is a change for white women characters to be written as strong and bulletproof. It is a change from the traditional way of them writing as the damsel in distress. But the antecedents for Zoe isn't the damsel in distress. Those aren't the tropes that she is born from, and the writers don't recognize that, don't have the background to recognize the antecedents that she comes from, which is like the Jezebel and the diamond.
Not attempting to undermine your point at all, Sara. This is more of one of my pop culture references that I always bring out. Gina Torres played Helen of Troy on Xena. That's the very antithesis of the type of character that she was written to be here, and all of those problematic backgrounds of it. Helen of Troy is an absolute antithesis of all of those.
Yeah, she does have a face that could burst 1,000.
She does. She also has legs that would do so.
Towers of Ilium.
That one scene where she is definitely vulnerable when it's her and Wash and they're together, and they've clearly just had sex, and she's in a very vulnerable state. And
I was going to say that's the one vulnerable scene that that keeps coming to mind. I think that, I mean, hopefully, obviously there is the problem, and then there is the direction that we hope the show would have gone. And I mean, just given that Book is underserved, that Kaylee doesn't, that some of the supporting cast didn't get the.
Haley's gotten a little bit, but not much.
Yeah, the size of the cast suggests that there was some intent here to. Yeah, and I would say that the Message has some. It's been a while since I watched the Message, but I think there's some stuff in there for Gina Torres to work with as well.
But very little bit.
It's again, we're talking about. It at some point it feels like equivocating when you're talking about the scope of the problem. Again, the raindrop versus the storm that you brought up, Sara. But definitely, I don't know. It's tough to wade into that conversation without a full thesis and essay, because boy, is there a lot to cover.
And like I said, I'm not the ideal person to cover it. It's just
worth mentioning.
It's worth recognizing.
Of course, yeah.
Got that one scene.
Yeah.
Tailing back on the other trope that you brought up, where the the Caucasian female characters are often cast as the damsel in distress. The one scene we haven't talked about yet is Kaylee getting pinned down because she panics in the idea of getting into the firefight,
Jack
and then
didn't like
River
that.
showing up, having had everything stripped away from her, everything we found out about in Ariel, having had everything stripped away from her. River shows up and boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
The trope and its antithesis
right.
standing in the same framing.
Mm-hmm.
How does that, Jack? I remember. I don't want to misrepresent your position, but you brought it up twice. Once during our rewatch and once during the live stream. The bit with Kaylee sort of cringing during the violence, where it didn't play for you.
It's not that I didn't like it. It's just that I didn't expect it. Like I have this idea that like I just didn't I don't think this would have been her first rodeo, I guess.
Well, yeah, no, the person who says Simon walks in the room and says, "What are we up to?" and she says, "Oh, crime." To be terrified of it feels
I liked it. I mean, I liked that she doesn't have a propensity for violence, and like I liked it, but I just wasn't sure if it fit. I guess because I imagine everybody on the crew except for maybe Inara has been through something like this. I think. I mean, isn't it implied that Zoe's been Kaylee's been with Mal for a little while at least? Like she's not.
Well, I think the whole crew.
Right?
This is the. I didn't think about it until you pointed it out, but this crew, you would think, has been getting into shenanigans for quite a long time together. This maybe wouldn't be the first time that she was sort of faced with this. And there's no sense when they're loading the weapons and Book has the kneecap line. There's no sense of hesitation in that particular sequence. It's just during the action sequence itself.
She looks a little uncomfortable with the gun. She does. She sort of she doesn't say anything, but she does sort of look at it like she's a little scared or intimidated, I guess.
Yeah.
No, and I don't have my age card notes with me. I'm in the middle of preparing for Memorial Day, so I'm but I usually have my age cards, but she was in Out of Gas. She was 16 in the flashbacks, and she's in her early 20s in the current time.
So it's been a little while.
She's been with the crew for 4 or 5 years at this point.
I will point out a couple things.
Go ahead,
that Jen. You're not, Mel has a tendency to leave most of the crew that is not his guns on the ship. So she might not be in this type of firefight.
Yeah, you're saying he has muscle for a reason. There are the muscle characters.
That's what Jane is for.
And she is the mechanic, so she's there trying to make sure that the ship is flying and,
Go ahead, Jen.
Mel does try to protect Kelly. Sorry, I get stuck on names.
Okay.
But so... And she has no problem with the violence or anything else. I don't think she's been in a firefight. I think she's used to dealing with like the action they deal with on the daily that we've seen in the show. But for the most part, if there's actually bad firefighting going on, she's nowhere to be seen for any of those.
That's fair.
On the ship.
That could be the case.
So she might not have had to deal with a situation like this. Plus, this is very different from getting into there's shooting going on compared to they're shooting at her.
Fair enough. Yeah. I don't think until Jack brought it up, I thought about it one way or another. To me, it feels like a beat that exists to get the gun in River's hand to show that the therapy that Simon is performing is having an effect, and to sort of another mystery in the mystery box. That phrase is never going to be usable again. Brought up and revealed. But But anyway, before we wrap up, Harris, I just wanted to check in with you. Ordinarily, we do the one-on-one, and you have some notes and things you wanted to highlight. I just wanted to make sure that you had a chance if there's anything that got left off you wanted to bring up.
In fact, I was gonna just bring up the bit that so when River. Sorry, I'm mumbling my words because I'm exhausted. So that's because I'm not conventional.
It's always the middle of the night for you. I'm just always happy. It's happy to see you.
When River talks about being able to function, but still being anxious, because even though it feels great in the moment, you know it's going to end, and you're going to snap back to that kind of lack of functionality, and that really resonates. Like the trauma I've had in my life is nowhere near the fictional trauma that River has had, but if anyone who has had executive dysfunction, I think, can relate to the idea of having those moments of being more what you remember yourself to be, but knowing it's not going to last. And so I really just like that they execute that kind of sentiment very well, and that always kind of resonates and hits with me, and I think that's worth.
No, that's a great highlight. I love that. As someone who personally catastrophized, I didn't really start sorting through trauma in therapy until my early 30s, which start early is my suggestion. Get on that early, everyone.
But it's also never too late.
It's never too late.
No, it's not.
Yeah, do yourself a favor. But sort of my operating principle has been I've been told I'm really great in disasters and emergencies. It's when times are good.
He is.
It's when times are good that I feel uncomfortable and panicky, because it's like, well, when's the other shoe going to drop? So I definitely understand that sentiment that she talks about in that sequence. I relate to that as well. What else you got? Or is it?
That's pretty much it. What season do we think Salmon would have finally grown his big 20 mustache and completed his character arc?
No idea.
Season 15. He doesn't look like he can grow a beard.
It's funny. The more we talk about it, the more I sort of grieve for the lack of future seasons, but appreciate that we didn't. These setups, they're perfect setups don't necessarily lead to perfect payoffs, and so to just revel in the setups, I think there's something delightful about what we got to have versus what it could have been.
Apparently, there are comics, but after reading Buffy season 8, I'm very wary of shows that continue on in comics.
Yeah. I have read the comics. They're not Buffy season 8. They're not.
Okay. Thank God.
They're not, great, wonderful.
Okay.
But it's pleasant enough, and they're not.
It's something.
Again,
it's perfectly acceptable, Firefly.
Just to flog the comparison, the horrible comparison, I get much more joy out of seeing Shakespeare performed than I do reading it. Which is
I understand that. I'm not even a Shakespeare fan, but I get that.
Character and dialogue-driven show in print form, to me feels like there's something lost.
I was talking about the comics.
Yeah. No, I understand, but again, a character and dialogue-driven experience for me, which is what these shows are in print form, there's always something lost. Even with Buffy season 8, which was far too long, there were only a handful of moments that felt like they evoked the experience of the show.
I liked the first quarter of it, and then it gets and then at the end it falls off a freaking cliff. It's whoa.
Yeah, in the comics you can't get, as much as they can try for panels that create a lot of frenetic energy, you can't get something like the actual frenetic energy of River saying, can't look, in that tone that tells you it's not don't look, it's not if you look you'll hesitate, it's they trained her out of looking. She's not allowed to look. She's just she has to do the numbers, and then she has to shoot, and if she doesn't, Harris knows.
I just run a knife.
Sorry. I'm making potato salad. I'm sitting on this stream making potato salad and talking about Firefly because it's coming up on Memorial Day, and my dad served in the Navy, and he gets potato salad.
Someone's a
go.
multitasker.
Yes.
That's impressive.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think potato salad is a nice a beat to wrap up on. So let's go ahead.
I like potato salad a lot.
Who doesn't
Thank
like
you.
potato salad? Well,
Exactly.
I guess if you can't eat carbs. Anyway, cheers, everyone.
I had very bad potato salad once, and I just can't.
Well,
Oh dear,
once-
I really
once-
am the killjoy today. Even on potato salad.
No, Sara, see, bad potato salad is bad. Bad potato salad,
Yeah.
like any other American mayonnaise-based party picnic food.
Now you're
If
speaking my
it's
language.
bad, it's awful.
Oh yeah, yeah.
right, well, that was a potato salad
for me, the potatoes have to be cooked quite well. If they're too hard, it ruins it. Like even like a little mushy is okay for me.
I like mushy peas.
We're actually keeping Harris
Mushy
away
peas
to
are
talk about
great.
potato salad. I love this.
Hey, he's English. He knows mushy peas. He knows mushy peas.
I think it's just the autism, the autism thing of having tasted the bad version. That the sensation always makes me think of the bad version.
I'm sorry. No, it's just
Brain's gonna
that
break.
we make a deal out of these particular low holidays in my family because Dad served back in the 60s, and you know, he was in the Navy, and so he gets what he wants for Memorial Day.
Harris, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I'm mad about how true Jack's comment was. I don't even like mushy peas, but I would also state I'd probably recognise good and bad mushy peas, even though I dislike them as a whole.
My mom was born in Manchester. That's why I know.
I like mushy peas.
All right, friends.
You're the reason why we had that revolution in the first place.
I'm going to
I want some mushy peas now.
I'm going to gather this chaos and try and wrap it up. Cheers. We'll see you in 2 weeks. We're talking about, I don't know, we're talking Firefly in 2 weeks. Trash, yes.
It's just done. It's just like,
good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.